I've never thought about it this way, but he said, what gets fired together gets wired together.
Yeah.
What gets fired together gets wired together. So every time that your kids see you maybe resolve conflict, that is kind of wiring together in their brain as, oh, that's how I deal with conflict. That's how I should. That's how a mom and a dad deal with conflict.
Yeah. This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate MarriageCast, where we hope to restore and reclaim godly marriages through honest and real conversations.
Welcome to episode 128, fresh off of the birthday.
Yeah,
Ryan,
happy birthday, Michelle.
Entering a new year, wiser and smarter. And we're so glad to have you listening to our show today. We're proud of you for making this investment in your relationship. And Ryan, today we are talking about a 5-star spouse.
5-star spouse. That sounds awesome.
And we are not talking about how you would rate your spouse. We're not doing that. We're talking about what would the word on the street be if somebody asked you about your spouse. So a couple of weeks ago, we always say that this is fresh downloads.
Yeah.
We get these all the time. And this is a show concept that really was put on my heart like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And around this concept of reviews. So based on how you talk about your spouse, what star rating would they get? So if I asked your friends or your coworkers, hey, this person's spouse, your spouse, what's the word on the street? What would their Google business review star average be? You know, the Google business reviews?
Yeah.
So what would they deduct based on how you've spoken about them and what the review is? So the words that you're either unintentionally or intentionally leaving for them. What is their review? Does that make sense? Are you tracking with my concept?
Yeah, Michelle, it's good. Good marketing right here. I like this.
Yes. Thank you. We have 3 areas that we're going to do checkpoints with you on. And here's the thing. Most people don't think about leaving positive reviews. Right now, I am working on a Google business review campaign, actually, and it takes a lot of work. If you look around in businesses, you may get a text message after a service, hey, would you rate us 5 stars on Google Business, or an email, or they might have a sign at their company. They work really hard because our human nature, I feel like, tends to be a little more critical, right? So
Sure,
people will take to reviews to kind of air out whatever problem they had with your company, but they don't typically think of going there for the positive things. So we have to work really hard as marketers and business people to collect those positive experiences. Not that they're not happening, people just aren't quick to share that. So it's kind of a skill set that we have to train ourselves even in life with how we talk. So we work really hard as a business to collect that. And we kind of have to go against the grain here. So we have to intentionally change our mindset. Even things like weather, people are always complaining about it, right? Well, you chose to live here. So kind of being intentional with how are we talking about our spouse and what perception are we creating for them? What kind of review are we building for them out in the world? What is the word on the street? So this is taking it internally and focusing on what can we do to improve how we are talking about our spouse.
Yeah, Michelle, this is so good. Let's look at scripture because there's a chapter in James that is so good when it talks about this very topic. It's James chapter 3 verses 4 through 6. They give the example of like a ship, you know, like a large ship. Okay, so it says, although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire. A world of evil among the parts of the body sets the whole course of one's life on fire and is itself set on fire by hell.
Whoa. That is vivid.
Yeah, I mean, our tongues are so powerful, and the words that we say
can speak life or death, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this. So the first area, Michelle, that we want to review here.
And really quick, Ryan, I told our listeners we have 3 areas, but I forgot to tell you we have a story. We have a story to seal all of this up at the end. So that will be coming later.
All right. So our first area of review, no pun there, review how you're talking about your spouse at work.
Yeah, that's good. I think that it is easy to get to work and the next day, hey, how was your night? Or, just unintentionally when you're talking to your coworkers about what you did over the weekend, or, yeah, I spent the whole night doing dishes or things like that. And that is a place that you spend most of your waking hours. So you do have those conversations, but yeah, be mindful of that. Where are you having those conversations? What are you talking about at work as you process?
Yeah, Michelle, this is I do think this is one that is often overlooked and you might not even notice.
Do you think it's subtle?
Yeah, I think it is
Slippery.
subtle, but you're spot on. Like, you're with these people almost as much as your family, if not maybe more. And so, oftentimes, like, I think it is subtle. You might say something and, maybe you didn't mean it. Maybe you did. I don't know. But you do have conversation. And I think just be aware of what you are saying about your spouse. What is that perception that if I'm talking about Michelle, that my coworkers would leave a 5-star review?
Right. And I think that is a place where you are probably asked more than any other place, what did you do last night? What are you doing this weekend? You're constantly repeating what you did or sharing. Hopefully you have a good work environment where people are engaging and wanting to know that stuff. But you, even within your friend groups, you're probably not talking to them as much as you are talking to some of your coworkers. So where are those subtle areas that, as you recap your night, are you subconsciously or maybe unintentionally letting some of that come out? And where can you take that captive and really steer the rudder of your ship in a better direction? So have you unintentionally painted a poor picture of your spouse where they're like, man, this guy's wife is really a slacker. He's cooked dinner for the last 5 weeks. What is she doing? You guys, I got back to cooking dinners and it felt great. I feel like after our marriage event last Friday, I looked at you and I said, I think I'm back. I was cleaning and I was cooking dinners and I said, Ryan, I think I'm back. I have energy. We've made it through these large projects we committed to on top of the new job and then emceeing an event and podcasts every week and writing and producing and being here to record and a marriage retreat that we did, a leadership retreat, all of these things. So, but I don't believe that you probably ever were at work saying that. You might have shared, hey, we have these big things, but in that process, I don't believe that you probably ever said, I've really been carrying all the weight at home because, Michelle's been so out of commission with this transition. So, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so second area is, how do you talk about your spouse around your friends? So these are probably the people that we're the most real with, the most transparent. And I think that this can be an area that probably can kind of snowball with as you're talking, especially if your friend starts kind of sharing. It's opening the doors for, oh yeah, well, my spouse, So are you piling up a list and creating a narrative that maybe really isn't the case? And what kind of narrative are you painting as you're talking to your friend? I think it's important to have accountability relationships where people can speak in, but it should be someone that is for your marriage, not someone that's just going to side with you and say, oh, what a loser. Like, oh man, that's awful. They stink.
Yeah. Yeah, Michelle, I think this one maybe is the hard one because I think you're spot on. And, so often I feel like we've heard this of like, well, I just need to vent. I just need to vent to somebody. And I think there is a distinction. I do think it's somebody, I think that person is very important as to, Michelle, you said this of, what authority do they have in your life to, are they going to speak in and be like, hey, Michelle, have you ever, looked at this a different way? Or, or are they going to agree and be like, yeah, Yeah, that guy. Boo.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ryan. And I think part of the differentiating factor is you had said, I just need a vent. People will say that, I just need a vent.
Yeah.
I think it's asking yourself, what is the end goal of this? Is it venting so that I can resolve and come back to my spouse closer? Are they shedding light on a scenario, giving me a better perspective? Are they helping me to have more empathy? And are they for my marriage? Or am I spiraling? And I think they could check in and see, how do you feel after that? Do you feel kind of yucky? That might be the Holy Spirit convicting you that was not a fruitful conversation.
Yeah.
Or do you feel kind of equipped and empowered to go back and have a conversation with your spouse or to really be better and show up better for them?
Yeah. Michelle, that was a great word. I love that word, resolve. Like what is the goal of the conversation?
I think that was from this weekend's message for the Family Matters series. Did I say that right?
House rules.
House rules.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's been so good. And that was the concept of this past weekend with Pastor Noah. It's just, are you coming back for resolve with your conflict resolution?
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's a good word. So the third area we want to look at is how do you talk about and to your spouse around your kids? If they were asked, what would their perception be? Would they say, oh yeah, mom definitely loves dad. He gets 5 stars. Or based on the evidence and what they've seen and heard, would it be less?
yeah, we actually asked our son this the other night and he said 5 stars, 5 stars. And I really appreciated that because in this season of really full schedules, there have been moments where we have had conflict, but he's seen us come back and resolve. So it hasn't been in the absence of stressors or conflict. He's just seen how we've handled it. So that really meant a lot that he had said 5 stars.
Yeah.
That he just knew, I said, based on how I speak out loud to dad and about him, how would he rate? And he said, yep, 5 stars, 5 stars.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah, Michelle, I think this one is also like really, really crucial because they're watching and they're learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the interaction and communication and everything that you and I have between us is a model.
Yeah.
And so they're watching and they're soaking in of, well, dad talks this way, I'm going to talk this way.
Right. We were just at this leadership retreat and for Think 3D Leadership, 3D Culture Cove, and Tamian had shared something really, I've never thought about it this way, but he said, what gets fired together gets wired together.
Yeah.
What gets fired together gets wired together. So every time that your kids see you maybe resolve conflict, that is kind of wiring together in their brain as, oh, that's how I deal with conflict. That's how I should. That's how a mom and a dad deal with conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's so important. That is so important to have, how you act with the words that you say, because they're learning. And just like you said, Michelle, that's forming pathways in their brain that wire, and that is what comes out. Yeah.
And I think that would be a great action point for our listeners to ask your kids, hey, based on how I talk about dad, what do you think his rating is? 5, based on how I, mom, talk about dad, how do you think what would I rate him? How do you think his rating is as a husband?
Yeah.
Might be kind of interesting.
Right.
Well, so 3 areas. Let's recap those really quickly again.
Yeah.
So we talked about at work, we talked about around your friends, and we talked about with your kids. I think that the power of also speaking life in all these situations goes so far. I want to share a story, Ryan. You were there, so you know the story.
Yeah.
But our listeners don't know yet. So we shared with you that we were working on this marriage retreat, which we just did. And it went amazing.
Yeah.
It was a marriage event.
Yeah.
And we had 20 couples there. It was fantastic. We were preparing that at a coffee shop that I used to frequent a lot when I was working freelance and contract, and I had some flexibility with where I worked from. And I always try to be intentional with going to the same place just to get to know people. And I know 4 of the baristas at this particular coffee shop. And I knew a few weeks back that they had some corporate visitors in town, and I'd followed up with them and said, hey, I knew when it was happening. I knew the week it was going on. And I said, hey, that was yesterday, right? Were they here? It seemed like they were here. And they said, yep. I said, how did it go? And they said, well, we actually didn't score the greatest in our perception rating. We don't get a lot of reviews that are positive, so we need to work on that area. And I said, oh my gosh, those emails that I delete, is that what you're talking about? And they said, yeah. They said, next time you get one, I said, okay, yeah, I'll fill it out. So fast forward a couple weeks later after that conversation, and I happened to go there when all 4 of the gals that I know were working, and I actually ended up talking to all of them. I make it a point to say, hey, how's your day going? What's it been like? Just having conversations. Hey, I knew that you were going to paint some watercolor Christmas cards for your friends for Christmas. Do you ever do that? Hey, how's your fiance? Any more wedding plans? Just trying to get to know them and talk to all 4 of them. Go home. I get a review request email, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is my moment. So I fill it out and I say, it's an amazing team. They knew my name after, I'd been going there for less than a week. And every time I go in, they know my drink. They say, hello, Michelle, welcome. And they're always excited to see me. And I listed all 4 of the baristas that were working. I said, they're a great team. And I listed them by name and then turned it in. Didn't hear for a couple of weeks what happened. But 2 weeks ago, we were doing some run-throughs at the coffee shop. It was a Saturday. We had laptops out, and 2 of the 4 came as they were leaving, which I thought was really cool that they walked over to us. And they said, hey, you guys, what are you doing over here? And I said, I know these laptops look out of place on a Saturday, right? What are we doing? Told them what we were doing. They're super excited for our event. And I said, hey, by the way, did you ever get a review? Did anything ever happen? I sent in a review. All 4 of you were working. And I told them, these people were working, and they just had these kind of astonished looks on their faces as realizations sunk in. And they said, oh my gosh, it was you. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, it was you. They're like, we got an email from our district manager, and she said, this is 5-star service. Print this email. Kudos to the team. Everyone in their whole district ended up finding out, and just a huge deal. I think it's framed or printed or something in their back room, and it's hanging up for everyone to see. And they said, oh my gosh, we were trying to think what customer it was that knew, 4 of us, and that meant so much, and, thank you. So just know, the moral of the story is speaking life into someone, that ripple effect goes so much farther than we ever realize. So live in such a way that you are continually speaking life and leaving positive reviews for your spouse, because that is going to change the course and just really the dynamic of your relationship.
Yeah.
So, that's our story. I loved it. It was so cool. And it just was such a good reminder that, 1, we need to be doing positive reviews more often, but applying it to marriage, keep leaving those positive reviews for your spouse, because it won't return void.
Yeah. So good, Michelle. I love that story. And it's just, it is such a reflection of the power of words, the power of your tongue, and what that can do to just literally elevate your relationship, elevate your marriage, just build your spouse up so much. That's so good. Think
about this. Your next company event, you're together and you're there, and your spouse hears from a coworker, oh yeah, hey, Michelle said, hey, Ryan, nice to meet you. Michelle said you're an amazing soccer player. Oh my gosh, Michelle talks about how much fun you guys have playing pickleball. Michelle talks about what a great content writer you are for podcast stuff. How much will that mean to your spouse when that gets back to them?
Yeah, geez, I'm already blushing a little bit.
Just think about it.
I know.
It's just like that review and how excited they were when word got back to them. So what is the word on the street for your spouse? Work really hard to build that positive 5-star review.
So good, Michelle. Thank you. This is I love this concept.
Yeah, thanks.
This is your creation. It's so good. I love it.
Inspired by real life. All right, Ryan, it's time for the mystery
All right,
question.
your turn.
Oh,
Your
okay.
turn to draw.
I can't get my hand in there. Okay.
All right.
Alrighty. What's a book or movie that changed your perspective on something?
Book or movie that changed my perspective.
I try really hard to read books about, even if they're fiction books, about different cultures, people, places, time periods. And I feel like just off the top of my head, I have a few that pop in my head. The Reunion by Dan Walsh. It was about Vietnam veterans coming back from war.
Okay.
Little Liars by Mitch Albom about the Holocaust. And The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Man, I'm impressed. I can remember all these off the top of my head. I did not know this question was coming. The Great Alone was a great story looking at bipolar and kind of, an abusive relationship, why the mom stayed in it. Just shed a lot of light on some different dynamics that I found really interesting. So,
wow.
Those off the top of my head.
Wow, very good. Very good. I'm going to give 2 answers.
Okay. You read way more than I do too.
I know. I'm gonna give 2 answers. One, I'm gonna give the most church
oh my gosh,
answer.
You can make me look bad.
No, I'm gonna give the most church answer possible. But and then I'll explain a little bit more. I mean, certainly the Bible has changed my perspective on everything.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give that answer, and then I'm gonna give a different answer.
No, I'm glad you did.
Because I think
it is the truth.
I think it's important.
10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Change your life.
One of the books that I read very, very early on in my walk of faith was Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. Just a fantastic book about, it's very like outdoorsy kind of, which I like, really like too. And so it's just really talking about the masculine heart.
You talked about that book a lot. I feel like.
From a faith perspective, and it's just really good.
Yeah,
awesome. I love it. So I don't know about movie. I can't really.
Yeah, I don't really
that changed my perspective.
You have also done a small group with that book, Wild at Heart, with some other men, and that's been really great. So,
really good.
Cool, awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah,
and. Thank you to our listeners for joining us today on the Celebrate MarriageCast. We have resources at Celebrate.church/marriage. If you don't have a church home, we would love to have you at Celebrate. You can find that information at Celebrate.church. And have a great week.
Have a great week.